Hey there, everyone. Welcome. Happy you're here. And this is Lotus with Art of Sacred Embodiment. So today I want to talk a little bit about maybe a bit of a different topic. And the topic is that of initiation. And a little bit of what that looks like in our personal life and what that might look like in our collective initiatory processes. So if you are interested and resonate with the spiritual embodiment and ascension process and you like this content, then please subscribe and like. I'd love to have you here more. Thank you for everyone for being here and returning and resonating, and I feel your energy and I really appreciate it. So I started doing the elemental alchemy 5-week journey on Saturday, and we were working with the air element. And so I want to bring that air element into this talk of initiation. And part of what I decided to do, because I am relatively unplugged from what is normally happening in the larger world. You know, I get enough reflection to kind of have a sense of, snippets of what's happening. But other than that, because of my initiatory journey, I don't spend a lot of time, nor do I put my energy, right? I don't consent anymore unknowingly to feeding a force that is there to take my energy and my empowerment. And this has been a process, right? It's been a process going through developmental stages and phases. And I've talked a little bit about it here and there because I know that there's a lot of people who are doing the deep shadow work now who feel like people who are only love and light are in a lot of bypassing and denial and all of that. And I think that that's true for a specific population. But for a lot of the population of way showers, and when I'm talking about way showers in this perspective, I'm talking about people who have been solidly on this journey, paving the way ahead of the greater collective, because that is their sole mission, and who have been doing this for decades. The important thing about this is to recognize that as we go through our initiatory processes and as we are consciously choosing our awakening, then over time, the frequency and the consciousness changes to perceive the world and what's happening in the events very differently, because we're literally beginning to operate from different dimensional awarenesses and frequencies of embodiment. Everything I'm saying right here is really important, okay? Particularly for the times that we're in. I think we've probably been saying this for a long time, but it's consecutively getting where the rubber is hitting the road. And I mentioned that in a kind of an update for 2025 back last year. So circling back. So as I'm starting to work with this lovely group, we've got over a dozen people, really, really, really sweet, and we're just barely starting to skim the surface of the magical life that literally exists. The magical life is not what we see in the third dimensional plane. right? So there's people who say we're already in the fourth dimension. I don't, the nuts and bolts I'm not as concerned with as just the material, mechanical experience of the physicality of what's happening in our world, and the um, the spectrum of experience of that. So within the air context, and as I began just saying, okay, I'm working now with this group of people more closely, I want to understand more how they are being impacted, perhaps from the different, not dimensional, um, developmental stages where everybody is at in their awakening process. So I've spent the last couple days kind of tapping back into what's happening in the news and, what's happening on social media and the conversations and everything. And really recognizing that there's this crossroads in some way that we're at. And that crossroads is whether I'm going to choose conscious awakening and conscious initiation versus being initiated and inundated from the external experience. So this is that thread as well of, am I living from the inside out or from the outside in? One of the biggest challenges that any of us face and are going to face is how to stop operating out of division. Us against them, good against bad, right against wrong. And this is, this is where we start moving from living in the material plane only, through fear, through scarcity, through our lower centers that are highly activated now through many people because they're big emotions, they're fear and scarcity and our survival. Those are all of these lower centers. This is the test. These lower centers, particularly that root chakra, is a huge initiatory process. Overcoming that is no small feat. And, I'm not going to say that even those of us who have been on this journey for decades have overcome the deeper parts of that part of human consciousness. And yet, many of us have transmuted a lot of that energy of fear and survival, which creates the division. It's one thing that creates the division. And have transmuted it into faith and trust. And knowing on a deeper level that everything is part of a bigger picture. Everything is happening, for our all collective highest good. And we've all chosen these specific experiences that we are having, and we have the power to choose a different experience. The more that we wake up, the more that we come into our body, we become more empowered to choose what it is that I want to be experiencing in my consciousness, in my reality, and I get to raise my frequency so that is what dictates my external experience in a big way. So there's a lot to tease apart on this, and I'm not going to try to tease it all apart now. So the division, we live in a realm of polarity and division. Part of the human journey is to understand the full spectrum of experiences and of emotional content, right, that we hold inside. And, normally, this is what compels us and propels us towards growth. Our pain and suffering in the past compels us and propels us towards growth, towards wanting to feel better. Okay? So now we're at a place where our growth is no longer wanting to feel better. Our growth is towards our spiritual remembrance of our divinity. And the physical world operates through this division. So those whose consciousness is still working with power struggles, power over, utilizing, utilizing tactics and fear-based methods. And again, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because we see it all around us. My job, my mission, so to speak, is helping people to come home to remember how deeply empowered we are and that the divine source, God, has our back. When we align, we are in the waves of greater grace because we're saying yes to the higher levels of consciousness. Now, years ago, and you can go back through my library, I have a video on our addiction to pain and suffering, all right, which is a very chemical, biological, physiological addiction. We, as humanity, have been inundated with pain and suffering, again, as a way to grow. And if we don't grow, then we stay in this chemistry. And this chemistry compels us to more of that same vibration without us even knowing it. All right? So this is another reason why our deep healing work is important, because the more we let go of our own experience to pain and suffering, then our frequency shifts. We're embodying something else. We're embodying something clearer, freer, and then we become more compelled towards more of that. Oh, I want more love. I want more joy. I want more celebration. And then we come into the realm of spirit, our true essence of who we are. So everything that's going on around us is simply reflecting back. Where am I still holding trauma, primarily in my lower three centers? Where do I have deep-rooted fears of death, harm, survival, and lack? Okay? It's not about what is going on out there. Everything that we haven't healed is collectively supporting the creation of the lower consciousness. So this then raises our emotional bandwidth to bigger emotions, to dense emotions, to fearful emotions, distrust, anger, rage, victimization. Okay? That's in that second chakra. And then we become used to those emotional frequencies and experiences. Now, if we haven't healed our trauma and we have always felt some level of victimization or disempowerment, we're going to latch on to what's happening. The energies are going to match. They're going to match. It's going to feel like a magnet. And we're going to start to feel, oh my gosh, this means I don't have power anymore. This means, right, that other people are being victimized and all of that. None of this to say that this isn't happening. The point is if you are experiencing it, that is simply spirit tapping on your shoulder saying, you are hooked in to this storyline, which means you carry it inside you. This is yours to heal. All right? Because that's what you're seeing without or outside of you. That's what you're gravitating towards. And then we're used to feeling that we don't have a sense of our own personal power. Now, we see a lot of people wielding what seems like personal power, but it's in the shadowed expression. And if we can begin to think that there's really hard, I'm just going to make a big blanket statement. There is nobody in leadership positions that do not have this activated in their system. They do not have this shadow part. Meaning, I am empowered through these actions that I can wield. And if it's not for the highest good of all, and that's a very complex statement, our human mind can't necessarily comprehend what is for the highest good of all, because this is a spiritual process that we're in. So I want to keep that neat and tidy because that can go on. So if you're feeling disempowered, if you have taken in the conditioning through your lifetime that, well, who are you to be too big for your britches, right? Who are you to know what your skills and your gifts are? Who are you to stand tall in your own true essence and presence? Or if you have been victimized and your power violated in deeper ways, if you're feeling the power structures of the world as they're collapsing and as they're like grasping and fighting to like raw, then that is the message to you. Oh, I'm feeling this so big because I have to go inside and say, wow, what does this remind me of? And if you haven't done any of this deeper work, you probably need assistance with it. This is your trauma. It's very hard to untease it alone. So, right, so this is the initiation ground that we're in. Initiation are, we could say, trials and tribulations, right? Challenges, deep things that test us on deep levels that we are called to overcome in order to transmute and transform what has already been to a clearer, greater scope of knowing, not just seeing, knowing, which means we have to alchemize our chemistry, our emotions, our thought forms into a whole new way of being. And along the spiritual path, we go through these consistently if you're actively on the path. We're all going through it. But the question remains, are you doing it consciously or are you doing it through the reactivity until you get so freaked out or so beat down that you're forced to let go? When we do this consciously, we are aware that we are co-creating a healing and an evolution with the divine. And we practice coming into that faith and trust. We practice choosing faith and trust, self-love, and eventually higher love, deeper peace. And this unifies our divided perception, because the higher dimensions, as we come into 5D, is a unified field. So what does that look like? First, I want to bring in the air element. And you can test this for yourself. Okay, this is a very easy test. In the elemental alchemy, we're learning to recognize the air element, and that the air element is part of what keeps us out of our being able to come all the way home in our body. It's what keeps us out and scattered, right? Or disembodied, so to speak. It's only one way of talking about that. So if you're feeling the challenges of division, right? If you're having debates, if you're feeling, I stand for this, I stand for that. I'm not saying that there isn't a place for it. It's how you're doing it inside yourself. So if you're feeling this, and if you're on social media a lot, or if you're having conversations, begin to notice when you are on the technology, because, the technology in itself does this. Now it's amplified. You can watch literally your energy and your air element taken from you. It's literally, right? It's like it just sucks your life force into what's happening here. Right? Into your emotions, into your reactivity, into the arguments, into silent, fear. How am I going to get away from this? Blah, 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 blah. We aren't getting away. We aren't getting away from it because it's inside of us. All right? Watch that. Feel that. Feel it go, whoo! And the more you become aware of that, it's important then to go, every time I go into that and my air element, right? My consciousness gets feeling like it's sucked into this vortex of whatever energy. I'm giving my consent. I'm saying yes by engaging from my shadowed expression, my unhealed, divided from self expression. I am giving my consent for my life force to be sucked out of me. I'm giving consent to my consciousness to continue to be inundated with that which creates fear, anger, and disempowerment. So just sit with that. I know this brings up a lot of yeah, but, I get that. So just recognize that there is another way. And that way is to take your energy away from the information. Simply recognize, this is making me feel angry, powerless, afraid. What happens for my survival? Okay, what do I feel and perceive the injustice is to others? All right. You step back. You go get quiet. You bring your awareness inside. What is it in me that knows this experience or this fear or this deep lack in my life? Where have I seen it play out generationally? Where have I been abused? Where have I felt like I haven't had rights personally? I'm not talking about the bigger collective movements. I'm talking about you personally. Where do I maybe bring in fears from a past life that, oh my gosh, if this is taken away, how am I going to have enough money to support myself? What happens in me? What comes up? Right? So this is where we start to need assistance. If you don't know how to do your shadow work, if you don't know how to do your deeper healing work, you can skim on the surface all day, all night long, being fascinated by everything out here. But if you don't go inside, you're going to stay in the throes of the turmoil and chaos. You know, it's a little bit more of a serious tone message, I guess, than where I thought we were going. But this is what's coming up. So there is an alternative. The alternative is to begin to realize there are very different realities. There are many different realities. There are very different expressions of consciousness, and there are different ways of co-creating a reality. We're co-creating our reality when we're locked in to what's happening outside of us. And then we're like sucked into, the mechanical matrix. And it's more than happy to pull our energy out of us consistently, because that's what it lives on. That's what it thrives on. And it thrives on us continuing to go along. The other alternative is you start to pull your energy inside. You start to turn your awareness and your emotions towards nature. First and foremost is the greatest reality. We start to pull our air energy back into our body. Because in our body, when we are embodied and rooted and grounded, and we connect to our soul presence, we will not be shaken for long. I'm not saying that we don't get shaken. But when we start to know this experience, because nature will bring us home. Nature will begin to anchor us into our truth and our interconnectedness with real life. Real life. Organic, natural life that feeds us, that nourishes us, that uplifts us, that loves us. None of the systems in the world at this time operate through what we want them to operate through, which is, compassion, love, support. they tout to, but they can't operate differently because they're in a polarity matrix. Okay, so one side or the other is not going to be anything. It operates in a polarity matrix. All of that is based on external power structures that might think or have genuine desire to support and offer love, but they can't because the systems themselves aren't infused with that frequency or consciousness. Oh my gosh, right? So they can't. Because the people operating and creating them from their own will are not vibrating at a frequency of wholeness with a deep understanding and respect and knowing of self-love, love for others, compassion, and peace. Because that's a different dimension. So what we're wanting to co-create is brand new consciousness through new systems, through higher frequency, higher dimension that comes into unification. There are many of us that say, I stand for love, I stand for unity. But if you're standing against anything else, you aren't actually, you haven't reached that consciousness yet to embody it. You're still in division. You're moving in that direction. You want that direction, but it's not going to happen outside. It's going to happen inside first. And the more that we're outside, the less energy and deeper awareness we have to co-create and to cultivate and reorganize ourselves and transmute our own density. This is the spiritual process. This is the deeper embodiment and evolution. And we do it consciously. The more of us that do this consciously, take our energy away from the chaos and the duality games, then what happens is all of this energy becomes infused inside and we go, oh, this is what I'm afraid of. This is what grief I carry. This is where I feel, this is where I feel powerless. This is where I feel shame. This is where I feel unsupported. Oh, okay. We heal that. We bring it home to ourselves. We recognize that we are connected. There is a bigger force supporting us. And we know this when we bring our soul back into our body more fully. We become soul empowered. The knowing, the wisdom, the truth that comes with that in and of itself is highly transformative. So this is when we get to these points, we don't see the division, right? We see the chaos, but it's like, okay, we love anyway. We know. And then we start to feel inside of us, I'm a vehicle for love, not because I've bypassed it, but because I've transmuted and am transmuting everything that divides me from the love that I am. The more that I'm home, and in my holy wholeness, and I'm balanced and harmonized through all of those elements, the more that I choose to look within versus be without, the more that I choose to put my energy and commune with nature and be empowered and infused with that, the more I choose to be present with my own stillness and silence, the more safe I feel, the more whole I feel, the more trust and faith I gain. And then literally we are able to look and watch from an eagle view, holding love and compassion, living from that, inspiring from that, transmitting from that, encouraging from that. That leads us to a much more fuller empowerment in co-creation with Divine Source, with life. And then we gauge choice by choice. Is this uplifting me? Is this helping me to flourish and thrive and expand me and bring me into true unification, where I allow every person to have their own experience, right? I see people having really hard experiences, and I feel it, but I don't carry it, because I witness this is where they're at in their journey. And it's not for me to try to change or shift. I'm here, right? For people, I have private sessions, I do classes for people who are interested and resonate with what I bring, right? Not everybody will. It's not everybody's path. I'm not everybody's soul tribe or soul journey. That's why there are so many of us doing amazing work. And many who have been doing this years, beyond me, that are actually to levels that I'm not even, grokking yet. But that's where I'm going. That's what I'm choosing. That's what is slowly transmuting, right? And transforming through me, not from outside. So this is our challenge right now. And this is the question, right? Questions. Am I choosing to consciously evolve? It's I say it's a simple question, but it's not always a simple question, because there's challenges in that, just like there are challenges here. But if we're choosing to stay in division and stay living from the outside in, we're used to those challenges, because our chemistry is adapted to those emotions and thought forms. So it's normal. When we start coming in, there are different kinds of challenges, because we need to start transmuting and shifting on deep levels our frequency. This is why I did the embodied moments. You can find it on the playlist. The frequency, the higher frequency, divine frequency transmissions, to help our chemistry move from the density to the elevated states, so that's what we start to choose more, right? So where do I want to be? What do I want to co-create with? Consciously or through this mechanical world? And Am I ready to go through the initiations of bringing my vision, my focus back inside me and saying, I see you. I see that fear. I see that disempowerment. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to go inside now and explore why you trigger me so much, why I'm so afraid of you, why I'm so angry at you. And I'm going to resolve it, transmute it, so that I'm free of it. It can't hook me anymore. And instead, I move into that higher state of, oh, now I can love myself more. Now I can empower myself more. Oh, now I understand that I always have what I need. And I can learn to trust that. And do I choose to begin to align with my prayer, with my gratitude, with my joy, with my faith and trust, with my connection with the beautiful beings in the natural world, and start putting my focus there. Start putting my focus into prayer. Start putting my focus into the beauty that I have in my life, right here, right now. So, right, that starts to bring us into a place of unification. The unification starts with us before it's in the bigger world. The more of us that unify here, inside, and the more that we unify through each initiation we go through, that makes an impact around us. Less of us are engaging in the drama. And then there's nothing to feed that machine anymore. Literally, machine. In many ways, right? There's nothing to feed it anymore. And then its roar starts to lose its energy, starts to lose its food, right? So we get to choose. And this is the journey that we've all chosen, I believe, to be here as souls at this time. And we get to choose what it is we want to experience by what we tune our consciousness to and how deeply we go in our individual healing process. Living comfortably does not mean that you're healed if you haven't done deeper work. And I'm not talking about trauma work. We all carry layers and lifetimes of things. And if you aren't being triggered and you haven't done the deeper work, meaning you're not like consciously doing this, then most likely, you just haven't, the triggers haven't gotten you yet. The right triggers haven't amplified your scarcity or survival or power things. So, we don't have to wait for things to get uncomfortable. We don't have to wait for crisis in order to do the deeper work or focus on raising our frequency. That's the beauty, right? We don't have to wait anymore. We used to think that we used to have to wait. We don't have to anymore. It's just simply part of, am I consciously engaging in my evolution? So I'm going to stop there. This has gone much longer. And yeah, it's an interesting time for sure. And I wish all of you peace. The more we can come into peace, the easier we can navigate this world. The more that we can come inside, allow our air, our breath, our nervous system, our mind to soften, pull our energy back. the clearer we will be. The better choices we'll be able to make, and the more deeply connected we'll be to faith and trust and our own deeper power. All right, off I go. Blessings.